Hello everybody, how are you doing? It is Sunday. Sorry about that. I got the lights off under the loft. I'm out in the shop, but I'm not really working on a shop project right now. I've got another project. Let me take you outside and show you. It's our crawl space entry right here, and you hear that whenever I press on it? The wind comes from this way and blows against the house at this angle. And all night long, this is the master bedroom above this. All night long, we hear that oil canning sound. Not only that, but if I can get this out with one hand, underneath of here, let me set this over to the side. Our floor in the master is incredibly cold because this thing doesn't fit tight. You can see, the ability for air to seep past there is just incredible when the wind is blowing, and it goes up under here, it gets cold, and then the floor gets cold. So what I've done is I've bought a piece of styrofoam, and we're going to build some kind of a way to hang it inside of this hole so that I can put it in and hang it, and then I'll latch it up top here so that I can pull it forward. I don't know if that makes sense what I'm explaining, but we'll work on this a little bit today. Let me show you what I bought to put in here. This is a piece of styrofoam insulation. It looks like stucco. That's all they really had, unless I want to buy a 4x8 sheet. But this will be big enough, and I'm hoping to stick this through the hole. I'll have to trim it a little bit. I'll put like an L bracket in there against the wall where I can drop it in, and it sets in there, and then I'll pull it towards me and latch it at the top because there's like 3 inches of space in there. And I think that will block the airflow. And then we'll figure out something else. Maybe I can take the scrap pieces and turn them sideways to keep that thing from making that oil can noise. I've got my piece cut to fit the inside dimension of the opening, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this piece of wood, and I've already got it marked. You can see my marks. We're going to actually put it right here on the back of this. I've taken a couple of L brackets and straightened them out in my vise. On the other side, I'll put the L bracket, and we're going to drive a wood screw through there. This is plenty long enough to go. It's about a little over 1.5 inches. I think it's 1.75 inches, but it'll come through here. This will be my backer on the other side, and it will attach to the piece of wood. And the reason why I'm doing that is this will sit up like this because there's a piece of wood that sticks down the footer board, or is it called the header? I don't remember. I think it's called the header. Sticks down, and this will actually screw in. I'll put a screw there to hold the top of this to the header. On the bottom of this, I'll end up putting a couple of holes, and we'll run another piece of wood that will attach to the styrofoam, and there it is right there. And I'll drill a hole through it, and I'll just put a piece of rope so that I can put this in the hole. I can bring the top up and clip it on the joist, and then I can take the string and pull the bottom toward me. That'll lock it into place, and then I can let it. Then I can go ahead and put the panel back on, and it should sit there just fine. This is 2 and 3/4, maybe 2 1/4 inches thick, and it should sit nice and even on that flat surface. So I'm hoping this will do the trick. And like I said, I won't put long screws to hold it to the joist, just short enough just to hold it in place, because I just want to stop the airflow from blowing under the house. So I'm going to finish putting this together, and then we'll go out and fit it and see how it works. I've got everything put together. Here are the little clips that will hold it to the joist. Here's a handle so that I'll put it at an angle, get it under the joist, and then I can pull it toward me. And then I backed it so that I didn't have to worry about the styrofoam tearing, with just a couple of cedar. These are some scrap pieces of cedar from when I made my Adirondack chairs. I'm going to go out now, and I'm going to go ahead and insert this into the opening, make sure everything fits nicely, and then we'll start thinking about getting a couple screws. I've got some small screws over here. I'm going to use these little hex screws just because they're self-tapping. Whoa, dropped one. They're really sheet metal screws, but they'll hold nicely in wood, and they'll hold well enough to hold this in place. And they're super easy to drive because I've got a little hex driver for them. So just going to use 2 of them to shoot it into the joist. I've got the panel inserted in the opening. There's the metal door that's going to go over it. What I noticed is I've got a little bit of a gap here, so I'm going to have to put some kind of a spacer because I want to keep that tight against the metal. So I'll make some kind of a little spacer that I can put in there, and then one over here. And that should keep it nice and tight, which will help with the airflow. Worked great. Let me put you on the tripod and show you how this is inserted into and removed from the opening. Really happy with how this is turning out. As I said before, all I need is to make a couple of spacers. I'm going to measure for those now and see if I have anything that I can use. I'm thinking maybe a piece of Delrin and just drill a hole down the center of it just large enough for the screw to go through. Now this does mean I'll have to change from those hex head screws I was going to use, those self-tappers, because I don't think they'll be long enough, but it's not a problem. I got drawers and drawers full of screws. So let me get a measurement. We'll get those made and then we'll see how this looks when it's all buttoned up. I've got a rod of Delrin in my lathe. I'm going to just use this chuck because I have a pin body still chucked up on the collet chuck, and if I remove that, there's a possibility when I put it back in that it won't be perfectly aligned, so I don't really want to mess with that. This is a 4-jaw chuck here. It's got a good grip on all 4 sides. What I'm going to do is go ahead and we're going to face this off, and then we'll drill our hole all the way down the middle, and then we'll cut 2 3/4-inch slices off of this with our parting tool, and we should have the spacers we need to make this project happen. I faced off the end of my blank. I did use a parting tool for that. Normally I wouldn't use a parting tool for facing, but this is Delrin. It's so soft, and I just basically ran it across there, and it just peeled the layer off and made it perfectly flat. I've got my bit in the chuck. And now we're going to go ahead and just drill this out. I'm going to do it with one hand, so I'm going to put the camera down for a second. I'm going to go ahead and move the bit forward, and then we'll drill a little farther into the blank. We really need to be about 1.5 inches into the blank so that I can cut 2 3/4-inch pieces off. I've already cut one of the spacers off. Do the second one here. Hopefully it doesn't fly too far because I won't have a free hand to catch it. There we go. You can see there's a little tip. Let that focus on the end of there. I'm just going to flip them around in the chuck like this, and I'll take that right off, clean it right up, and I'll have 2 perfect spacers to use with my my insert. Here's a better view of the spacers. Because I had drilled a hole down the center of them, I got this little extra piece here. They're exactly 3/4 of an inch in length, so we'll just chuck them back up, and I'll just clean that off of both of them, and they should be perfect. I actually ended up not removing those little nubbins. I just basically stuck them into the hole on the back of these brackets. Kind of holds them in place. Now I'm going to drive a couple of screws, and you can see I've got a nice tight fit. This is a 1/2 inch longer over here, so it's against the wall. I've got a nice tight fit all the way around, which I'm hoping will stop a lot of that excess airflow and that oil can noise that we hear. He's good to go. The screws I had just weren't long enough, so I went with a little bit longer screw. I just need to make sure this still fits. There we go. Sorry about the extreme close-up, but that's perfect. Now, you hear that? See how it still moves? Next step is to address that. And I think what we're going to do is, we know that my styrofoam is right against the edge, the lip of this bracket. So I think what I'm going to do is I've got some spare styrofoam, cut a couple of strips that are that width, and just lay them in there straight up and down, maybe 2 or 3 of them, and that way it can't make that movement. That flimsy piece of metal can't flop back and forth. So I'm going to get that done next, and we'll see how well that works. This is the plan. I brought the door from the crawl space into the shop, and if we measure, you can see that we are right at 3/4 of an inch. So I've got this nice long piece of leftover. It's plenty long enough. I'm thinking I'll cut a couple of 3/4-inch strips off. I'll make them just a tiny bit longer than this, and I'll jam them inside of the door, maybe 3 or 4 of them. And what'll happen is that'll give it some rigidity, because then this will not be able to flex, because this will be pressing against the backstop that I put in there. So I think this will take care of my oil canning noise problem. So I'm going to fire up the saw, cut a couple of strips, and see what happens. I got my 3/4-inch strips cut. You can see they are perfectly flush with the lip of the door. Super excited about that. They are just pressure fit in there. The nice thing about that is when I take this back out to put the door back on the opening, I don't know where the upper brackets or the rope at the bottom is actually going to align with the door, so I may have to move these in or out, but they're pressure fits, so I can slide them back and forth, no problem. I want to take this out, get it installed. I think this is going to stop that oil canning noise. I certainly hope so. It will be windy tonight, so I will probably find out later this evening. But I'm going to go get this installed back on the house and see what happens. I think I'm going to still have the oil canning issue because look at this. It's the entire door. The door doesn't fit tight. I think it's warped a little bit, so I need to figure out what I can do about that. I think maybe putting a little pressure in the middle to bend the ends out might help. I'm going to try that. That seems to have worked. I think it's going to be a lot quieter tonight. I'm really happy with that. See, and this is why I need to do something. Notice that gap there? That's a 3/4 inch gap. I mean, you're looking at a 1/2 inch probably right there. Air just whips right around there and into the crawl space. So we'll see how this does. I'm super happy with how it turned out. Well, I couldn't be happier with how that turned out. I'll know shortly how it works. We should basically stop hearing that rattling noise, especially in the evening when you're trying to sleep. And hopefully that, it's not airtight completely, right? Air can still get into the crawl space, which is a good thing. It's just a little less of that wind is going to blow through because I've blocked the major gaps. The other thing that we're going to do is tomorrow, I'm talking with a company about making me some solid glass storm windows. And the reason why is the windows that we have, they are vinyl windows, right? And of course, it's an upper and a lower pane, and there's a screen on the outside. They don't come with glass, or ours did not. And what happens is that wind blows against there, and if you get right up next to the window, you can feel air coming between the two panels, the upper and lower panel, as well as sometimes around the sides of the window, because it really is just a vinyl U-channel that window sets in, so the air can just come right around it. So my thought is, if I go buy some glass panes, and I'll need 2, 4, 6, 8, 9 of them for the backyard, I can put them up, screw them into place in the wintertime, and what that'll do is that solid glass will stop that wind from hitting the window directly, so it should keep that air from coming through. You won't get a draft, right? So that's the hope. And I got to talk to a company about that. I went out today, my wife and I went shopping, and no one sells storm windows anymore. They just don't sell them. Some of the places will sell vinyl windows of specific sizes, but they don't sell storm windows. I remember years ago, you could go to the hardware store, and of course back then they were all kind of that's just silver aluminum. They weren't painted, but it was glass windows, and you could buy the glass windows or glass screens, and that's what I've been looking for. But the hardware places, the hardware stores, big box around here doesn't carry those. They're mostly concerned with the kitschy cool stuff. They want to be hip and sell all the fun new products and sell groceries and everything else. They don't really sell the things you need for your home. So we're going to talk to somebody tomorrow about that and see if that helps. I think it'll help in a number of ways. Number one, it'll stop the draft in the house. Number two, it'll warm the house back up. And number three, it will probably help with the electric bill, which will be nice too, because when the house is that cold, the furnace has to run so much more. And then the nice thing is in the summertime, I just pop a couple screws, drop those off. The screens are in there. So if we want to open a window, we're good to go. And I think that's the way I'm gonna go. Other than that, I don't really have too much else I want to do in the shop. I do want to talk about these again. I have got this down to about, this is the 45 RPM spindle adapter. I've got them down to about 30 minutes a piece. What I want to do now is I do a jaw change on the chuck. I want to bring my other chuck into play with the large jaws, and then the chuck that I have on the lathe now has the smaller jaws. That eliminates the wasted time of changing the jaws. And then I want to, I've got some steel, some tool steel. I want to actually make a specific shaped tool that I think I can use to just do my 45s super quick, or really not 45s. They're not, I don't know what the angle is, but I just put a chamfer on all the edges of the spindle adapter. And I want to make a special tool for that I can just pop it into. I've got extra holders for my quick change tool post holder, or quick change tool holder. So I'll pop it into one of those where I can just drop it on, crank it up, and just shave it off. And I think that's going to shave some time. I'd like to get down under 20 minutes. I'd like to be able to make one in about 15 minutes, and I think I might be able to exceed that time. And then I want to do a little bit more. I've been researching online. The size of the hole in the center of a 45 is exactly 1.5 inches, and you got to be just a hair shy of that so that you're able to easily put the 45 on and off. And what I found is the one that I had on my stereo, I was using it as a reference, and there's a bit of a gap. There's maybe a 1/64 of an inch gap all the way around, right? So if you slide the record all the way to one side, you could have a 1/32 inch gap. I want to eliminate that gap. I want it to be loose enough to easily remove and place the record on there, and it's going to be smooth because it's aluminum, but I want it to be tight enough to where if the record's off to one side, it's not, every time it goes by, your needle's not doing one of these numbers, right? You're still going to hear it, but it could produce a bad sound when it does that. So I'm working on that. I haven't done any penny cutting in a few days, but I'd like to get back to that here pretty soon. I got something I'm working on with a company. I don't want to say a whole lot more than that because we're still in negotiation, but it may bring a little bit of content to the channel. It's a lot of the same style content you're used to, but I am working. They contacted me, and I'm seeing where this goes. We've been negotiating back and forth. We'll see what happens, but that might be something kind of fun. And once I know a little more, I'll talk about it. I'll talk about it on here, and I'll probably talk about it a little bit on the podcast, depending on what it's okay for me to say. Because when you work with a company, you've got to kind of, they have certain things you can and can't say, certain requirements. So I got to find out what the parameters are. But keep your fingers crossed for me on that one, because I think it might be huge for the channel. I hope it will be huge for the channel. Other than that, I tell you what, I'm off work all week, guys. I think one day this week we're going to have to get out here and just turn a pin and make a quick video for the other channel, just because I haven't done it for so long, and I want to kind of stay away from pin videos for a while, but it's something that is ready to go. The rest of the things I'm working on all have to be set up and practiced and learned, and there's so much going on, but at least I can grab my tools and maybe turn a pin for you guys. So if I can find the time, keep your fingers crossed, because I got a lot of other stuff going on, we'll do that. But I hope to show you guys some other content this week as I work on some of these other devices in the shop, turntables, etc. So as I work on those, whether it's this week or next week or whenever, I will show you guys. But man, that's it. This video is way too long. I'm sorry about that. But I just want to kind of give you guys a heads up of what all's happening here in the shop. I will talk to you again soon. Thank you for hanging out with me. Have a great day, and we'll see you soon.